podcast, which he never did before. And I thought it was one of the great things about the show. We're flying off the cuff.
Now, how is he doing that?
He's making them stop, and he's making Jamie Google everything. Every single
Oh
thing.
my God.
So he had Tim Dillon and Alex Jones on a couple of shows back. He stopped Alex Jones several times and go, now, do you know this? He goes, Jamie, look that up. And he's like stopping him. And he goes, no, we got to be careful. We can't say this if, and Alex Jones is trying to like, dude, just let me do what I do. Like he didn't say it in those words, but that was his attitude.
Alex
like, dude,
Jones would be like, I can't even believe that Rogan would have Alex Jones on. Like that is the guy that you do not have on if fact checking is something you're gonna have to do throughout the entire show.
The amazing thing was this, man. I want to say that the first 3 or 4 times that he did do it, Alex Jones was right. And not only was Rogan calling him on it, but he was also calling bullshit. And Alex Jones was actually right. And I found that to be not only funny, but fascinating, because how many times has he been challenged later on for saying something? Now, he said some, believe me, he has said some idiotic things. However, how many times has he been challenged later on after he said something? And because he just didn't want to deal with it, he just let it go. He just let it kind of happen. And he was actually right. Like the people that said, no, there's no way, didn't actually do the research. And he was actually right. But because he just was like, I want to move on from this, he didn't call him on the idea that, well, maybe you should fact check me because I might be right. Because he said too, he's like, I'm so, what's the word he used? ADD or whatever, that like I say things and I know I'm not necessarily 100% accurate on what I'm saying, but he's like, I know that the information's there. There might be bits and pieces that I've messed up. So he's fact checking Alex Jones. And I was just like, every time, like, and you could tell that even Alex Jones and Tim Dillon are like, all right, man, we get it. Can we just kind of, but that was what I loved about the show before, was that he'd have whoever, I don't care who, it doesn't have to be a guy like Alex Jones. It could be anyone. Something would be said. And if they were wrong, they were wrong. No one apologized. They didn't come back and look it up later. They just said it. So we're going to stop every time now somebody says something that you're not sure is true or not and fact check them. Recently, he had Luke Thomas on one of the MMA shows. And Luke Thomas was talking about fighter pay, and he was talking about some article that this guy put out where they did some research on USADA. But Joe stopped him, and he goes, now, are you sure about this? He's like, have you done your research? And then Joe's like, well, we got to be really careful about saying this. I'm like, oh, God, this is not.
I don't like that at all.
This is not fun. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, just let him go. Yeah. Let him go on his rant. I understand it's irresponsible if they have a show like that and then you or I come on this podcast and re-regurgitate that information and it's wrong. But, dude, that's such as life, such as media. You should always be researching where you're getting your information from. When I hear things on Joe Rogan's show prior to this move to Spotify, I didn't take them to be a matter of fact. Like I wouldn't hear things and go get in an argument with someone and say things that were said on Rogan's podcast to them like I believe them to be true. I just found it to be interesting that the people were talking about it. And if I found it to be interesting enough, then I did my research. That's called being media literate, which I think I've talked about on the show before. So like, why does it have to be done in the moment? Why can't you and Spotify just rely on the people that listen to your show not to be stupid? It's not Joe's job to monitor it's not Joe's job to monitor how his audience interprets his show. His show is just his show, you know?